we've got the huge fab being built.
Yeah, the billion or
It's 15 billion, I believe.
That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
On this episode of the RCN podcast, the owner of Drafters Inc., Stacy Heminger.
There was a lot of late nights. Getting up to speed as quick as possible. That's what needs to be done in order to get these projects completed.
That seems like it should be a simple step.
It does.
I think that it is one of the biggest challenges in the whole industry right now.
Everything's upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Please make it an easy button to flip those over.
We're doing an inverted scan.
Exactly.
Doing 3D. You're paying for it, but it's to protect yourself.
We clash these models down to a ½ inch.
The dream product.
Exactly. Find something you like to do it better than anybody else, and you'll be successful.
Welcome to the studio, Stacy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I am excited. I love digging into stories, and this is a fun one because you're local here in Boise. Now, what were some of your first roles?
Yeah, so went to ITT here in Boise way back 1991. You know, that was back in the day. AutoCAD release 9, 10. I think we switched to right at the end there. Still doing 1 week on CAD and 1 week on the drafting board, you know, so left there and got a job with the local consulting engineering firm here in town, and, you know, quickly found out all the things you don't learn when you're in school. Went to that job thinking that I was going to be following the one CAD drafter that they had there, and my first day there, he told me he was putting in his 2 weeks notice. So that threw me for a curve right off the bat. And my instructor, Earl Faulkner at ITT, he informed us, you know, always coached us on how to do your interviews and that sort of thing. And I just remember him telling me, okay, you never want to lie in an interview, but you don't have to always tell the exact truth, you know. So he always said, you know, if somebody asks you a question and you've heard of this, whatever it is they're asking, you can say, I'm familiar with that. So I went into that interview and they asked me if I knew MicroStation. And I was familiar with that, meaning I, heard of it.
Yep.
So I basically had 2 weeks to learn MicroStation, and we were doing Albertsons remodels at the time. So that was a good lesson in be careful what you ask for when you go into an interview, because I tell you what, there was a lot of late nights learning that program and getting up to speed as quick as possible. Went on from there, went to Trust Joyce McMillan, worked at their machine shop there. Worked there for a couple years, and then I got the opportunity from an engineer that I worked with at the consulting firm to get out at Micron and start doing some part-time work for them in the evenings. So I was working at Trust Joyce McMillan during the day and got my foot in the door out at Micron on the construction side, working evenings and working on the couple of the older buildings now, obviously, because this was in 94, 93, 94. And it ironically, back then, we were actually doing those buildings in 3D, AutoCAD, bare bones 3D. So that was
nice and early.
Oh boy, yeah, lots of trial and error learning that stuff. But was very fortunate getting my foot in the door, and then Hobson's offered me a job. Hobson Fabricating, local sheet metal shop here in town. They were the general contractors on this project, and they offered me a job to do their detailing for them for the new fab coming up, which was Fab 1X at the time. And that was where my whole career really started, was that job. I got to work with a detailer who had been in the industry for years and learned a lot. There's working for a consulting engineering firm, you learn the design side. You don't necessarily learn how things are constructed, how things are built. This gave me the opportunity to, actually learn every nut and bolt, how every flange, every fitting was put together in the ductwork and in the systems. And yeah, that was a very fast-paced project. That building was built in 9 months and pretty much worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day was average, and did that for 9 months straight.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Put the work in.
Yeah. Yep. But down the road, it actually paid off because I went back to Hobson Fabricating and worked on other projects for them. And then when I went out on my own in 1999, I got a call from Micron, one of the mechanical design team members out there had seen my work on the drawings I did for that project and called me up and asked if I'd be interested to come out and do consulting or contract drafting for them. And so I was able to get my foot in the door out there at Micron early on. And, they had a lot of ups and downs through the early 2000s. And then 2010, they called me back out there full time as my company, Drafters Inc., and me and two other gentlemen went out there, and we've been out there ever since full time. So
that's incredible.
It was one of those, being in the right place at the right time.
Sure.
A lot of things that, just fell into place.
What was it that led to your start in working for yourself?
There was a couple of catalysts that pushed me that direction. One is for any of you that have been doing drafting and on that side of the design fence, that everything comes down to you. I mean, you've got the architects, the engineers, and everybody that's, working hand in hand. But when it comes down to it, and it comes down to everyday deadlines just hitting you in the face, there's a lot of pressure, a lot riding on your shoulders. As a detailer for Hobson Fabricating, we were not only doing the coordination drawings, which is where you get the drawings from the engineers, you go through, you make sure everything's fitting, and then you detail out every stick and every joint of duct. And then we also did all the fab sheets, so we were turning those fab sheets into the shop. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of fun there, but there was also a lot of pressure because everything's run and gun, get it done as fast as you can, and just hope you don't make mistakes, because at the time we had very, very few checks and balances in place watching, so when that stuff hit the shop, you pretty much had to make sure it was spot on. And if it wasn't, you heard about it.
Yeah, I bet.
And let me tell you, those guys out in the field, they had a hard time adjusting to having given that control up and given it to, a drafter.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to earn their respect and earn their trust. And every little mistake you made, that just went out the door. So, going through all of that made me realize how important the drafting role is. And I just wanted, when I went out on my own, my idea was, at first I was on my own. Then I picked up, Mike Underwood, my very first employee that I brought on, still with me today.
That's awesome.
And we had a bond there, and we wanted to build a company that kind of gave respect back to the drafters. And, respect's one thing, pat on the back's another, but getting that paycheck is, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I believe in. And that's how I've grown my company, is pay my guys and gals what they're worth and make sure that they are taken care of and that they have a voice and they're heard.
Not an easy thing to pull off, building a company that you can, reward people. And I think a lot of businesses, as they grow, especially the bigger ones, a lot of them lose that personal touch. It's why a lot of people do drop out of like corporate companies. You end up feeling like a number, you feel undervalued. And I think that's the desire of most small businesses is like, man, if I can make this work, I want to try to do things different. And I want to try to reward people. And because really people are the business.
100% with my business. That's it. I mean, everything that has been built up. I mean, we started out with 3 people in 2010. We're up to 41 people out there now.
That's incredible.
And it just, a lot of it has just been right place at the right time. In 2015, Micron decided they wanted to delve into the BIM and 3D side of things, and they went head first into it and haven't looked back.
We even still see companies transitioning today. Like it's been happening for a long time, but that change from 2D, from old ways of measuring to CAD to now everything's going the opposite direction of people are seeing the value of 3D design and coordination and using Revit and BIM processes. And
early 2000s, I went to the manager out at Micron. I was actually working on a couple buildings out there for a local mechanical contractor out there, RM Mechanical. And I went to the BIM or the CAD manager at the time and was telling him how I see the value with this coordination. We need to be doing this stuff in 3D. And his first response was, I agree with you. Who's going to pay for that?
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to him and I said, listen, Micron's paying for it right now. They just don't realize they're paying for it in all the RFIs and SCRs and all the change orders that's happening after those engineered drawings go out and the coordination starts and they realize nothing's fitting. If that was done ahead of time, then all that would be eliminated, or a good majority of it would be. It took them a decade or so to realize that, but they have embraced that idea that, this is where the future's going. Yes, there was a huge investment up front, and that's where they took the risk and really looked at the end goal, kept that end goal in mind. Even though a lot of them didn't even really know what the end goal was, it just kept developing as it went, and they kept seeing more and more reward for what their investment was. Where we're going with it, we're using these models more than just for the original construction. We're using those as record documents. A lot of larger projects you see where you have a design model that gets turned over to the contractors and becomes the coordination model. And then once the project's complete, those get put on a shelf and never seen again. We start out with the design model, transfers over to the coordination model where all of the trades get it and do all the coordination modeling. And then from that point on, Micron is they're in it from the very beginning, but even more so when the contractors start doing the modeling, because they're involved with every detail. We make sure all of the BIM execution plan is in place. All the standards are being met so that when we get that model turned back over to us, it's a very usable and accurate model. We're now incorporating, laser scanning at the end of the project. Well, it's throughout the project, but at the end of the project, everything is verified, with the scanning and made sure that when that model's turned back over to us, it's as accurate as possible. And then we continue on because we use those models for all of the tool installs for going, every tool that goes in the fab, all the support equipment in the sub fab, every base build, remodel that happens, any addition to any of the facilities, we maintain that as accurately as possible. it's been a journey. We finally got a they call it the RDQA team, so consists of laser scanning team and then a modeling team that goes in and as-built projects after they're installed. So we're trying to get to that mythical digital twin, but it's been a process. We started, like I said, 2015, so getting close to 10 years into it, and we've learned a lot, and we've been very fortunate to be there from the beginning, to be able to help build this massive infrastructure from the ground up. Has just been
I think a lot of the industry is still at that point of how do we know it's worth it? Is it gonna? Where does the budget come from? Is it too expensive? Are we actually gonna save money? That's cool getting to walk through that and see that transition within a large client, large project like that.
When I was out there doing drafting and design work, I would go out to these buildings and I would spend days as building one system.
What went into that?
We still have buildings out there in 2D, but what we're doing now is we're going out, scanning them and pulling them up, even in AutoCAD, or a lot of times there's just so many areas out there that you can't go into. I mean, one, either you physically can't fit in there, or there's chemicals where you can't be getting into that area. You have to, I've spent hours out there in a Tyvek suit under wet tools, as building back in the day, and you just come out just drenched, and don't even want to go there. But it was a lot of just hand over hand. Where we could, we would take the laptop out and as built as we're going just with the laptop. But we're talking, again, AutoCAD, just 2D line work. So, and then inevitably the next, 6 months later, there would be another project going out there, and you'd be right back out there as building again, thinking, okay, we just as built this. Where did those files go? File management, that's a whole nother story. The work it takes to get out there and do accurate as building compared to what you can do now is just, there's no comparison whatsoever. And now it's getting to the point where it's almost going the other direction. We'll get people going, hey, can you go out and scan this 2-inch copper line that's running, across here? And it's like, can't you just throw a tape on that? Because it's just a straight, they're getting spoiled. Yeah. So there's the other side of the coin too. But for the most part, it's been just a huge change in the whole industry as far as that goes.
Though it's way more beneficial than the older ways of doing it, what are some of the challenges you do see in scaling these tools? And
there's the obvious, which is the data management, huge files. We have servers, and they'll give us a allocated server, and at first it was everything was on one server, and it took about 3 months, and we were like, okay, this isn't going to work, because what took 2 or 3 years to get to halfway full on this server, we just filled up the other half of that server in 3 months of scanning. So
data sizes have changed.
Yes. So one of the big challenges we have right now is we have this 100,000 square foot fab, and there's probably 200 to 300 projects going on in this fab in 1 year. And so we're out there constantly scanning for each one of these projects, finding some sort of way to manage all those to where we know we're looking at the latest scans. We can go and purge, get rid of the scans that are older.
The dream product.
Exactly. So yeah, if you got any tips on that, that would be very well.
At some point, there needs to be a software that we can just dump the new scans into, and it cleans out the old stuff based on date. And I haven't seen anything do that. It's still, thus far, has been a pretty manual process of clipping areas or, dealing with individual files. I don't think it's going to be long, though, because there are so many companies seeing the growth of this industry and putting a focus on it. Yeah. It's part of why we actually this year started a startup pitch competition that's involved at our conference. And this year, Power Engineers is our partner on it. And part of our goal there is inspiring. There's so many smart people trying to come up with these next new companies and next new products in other industries. This space around construction technologies, there's so much that could be done with this data that would be so valuable to the built environment industry. I think we just need to inspire more talent to see that need and start getting creative.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there for sure. The other thing that we've found challenging, control points is a big one. We've had struggles with that. The construction team, they manage that whole side of it, and they have their own total station. What we've found is it's depending on the area and depending on the environment they're shooting in, we've found it to be very challenging in order to get these scans aligning correctly.
Yep.
And I've heard you talk about this in the past.
A lot.
I mean, there is, we're trying to, we clash these models down to a 1/2 inch tolerance. And so in order to get that, we need to have our scans within that tolerance.
Yep.
And we've found that to be.
Yeah. I still believe, even though that seems like it should be a simple step,
It does.
I think that it is one of the biggest challenges in the whole industry right now, is how, depending on the project, the bigger it is and the more detailed it is, the more complex it is, the more difficult it is to get your data to actually be accurate. And a lot of people, you're at least already talking about total stations and control points and still maybe having challenges. A lot of people don't even know that part. And that's why we talk about it so much, because to take a scanning device and do a small room, you don't need control. You don't need to know anything about survey. You don't need, but as soon as you start doing multiple levels and you're going down long halls and you're getting drift and there's overlap issues and there's, when you need a whole big project to be within that tolerance, there's so much. It's a very different approach in how you process that, how you control it, how much overlap you have, what type of device you can use to scan. Those are things that the industry has not really taught. Anybody who's figured that out has done it the hard way. They've banged their head against the wall. There's no guidelines. There's no training. That's one of the things we're hoping to solve with our committees and bringing experts together to say, okay, let's all share some of the best practices. Let's share things we've done that's been successful, and let's write some standards or guidelines that the whole industry can share, because it helps everybody. If we allow people to keep failing and not share our successes and help them improve, the industry doesn't believe in the technology.
Exactly.
They throw it out and say, we tried scanning a building once, the data was messed up, we don't trust it, when really those things can be worked through. But I think it takes sharing from the leaders in the industry who have done it, who have been a part of it, who've spent the time to, be out there doing it. We have to share those insights. It's why I push so much for collaboration. Many companies, and I know more so even, I think back in the day, I feel like there's more companies today that are feeling this than before, but the belief that collaborating is a lot better than seeing people as competition.
Honestly, at your conference last year, that was the biggest takeaway. Your belief in collaboration and your push to better the industry as a whole, very much appreciated.
Yeah. So, well, the community we're building only works if people show up and believe that and agree in it and start participating. And so it is really cool seeing a shift and seeing people kind of continue to buy into that and start collaborating and, you know, having a panel conversation at our conference full of competitors that'll sit there and give insight and share. And, you know, I totally understand as well, though, as a business owner, right, that there has to be a certain level of focus on the business. You have to make it work. There is competition, but most of the people, even at our own conference, that actually, you know, come talk together, though they may do similar types of work, they're from all over the world. They're from all over the country.
Yeah.
They focus in different markets. It's not like it's actually your neighbor taking your work, you know.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of, yes, proximity. Like there has to be a focus there as a business. But I believe if we as an industry help each other fix some of the headaches we're having with technology, some of the gaps in education and training, all it does is create more work that creates more demand, that creates more need to collaborate, because there's also a resource issue. There are not hundreds and thousands of people in the States, and I'll use states specifically because, you know, usually scanning is local to you.
Yeah.
There are not tens or hundreds of thousands of people out there that know how to do this work that are looking for jobs. So the more demand we're creating, the more collaboration need there will be. So if you look at that, it's a positive for everybody. There's no negativity that comes out of it.
Okay, speaking of challenges, our next biggest challenge right now is we've got these fantastic models being built, all this design and all of this effort going into these, getting that into the hands of the trades guys that are actually installing this stuff. You know, we're giving them iPads and laptops, which helps, but I believe the next step is the augmented reality, being able to visualize and see what's happening out in the field real time with these models is going to be the next thing that's going to really help, because we're doing a lot of prefabrication out of the models right now. With a lot of the more expensive systems, that stainless steel 4 lines, which are all prefabricated, all welded up in the shop, brought out with very minimal field welds needing to be done. Fabricating pump racks and that sort of thing in the fab shop, bringing them out there already all pre-assembled with manifolds already on them right out of the model. Things like that and the more we can do that, the more valuable the model becomes, and the more everybody benefits.
Yeah, that's the again, back just the exciting part of helping everybody move forward with these technologies is that there's so much more to be done even than we're doing now. That whole future of the immersive, of XR on the job site, of robotics helping with layout, there's so much to be had. But part of why we're focusing on education is like, where do you learn to do it? Who's helping do pilot projects and give some outcomes and guide the workflow of, well, here's the platforms you're going to need to be able to go from scan data to model to XR to install to, it's so much piecemeal and so many platforms. I think some of the things we want to build, it's coming from I wish I had it when I was the one hands-on doing this, is
Exactly.
I want to go to a website and filter and say, hey, here's the thing I'm trying to build and here's the platform I'm using. What's my, suggested workflow or software, or then go a step further and actually have some training opportunities for people. Because there are some universities, I think, that in construction programs are starting to touch. There are some BIM degrees, I believe. There are some introductions to a laser scanner in that course at a few universities, but it's so minimal that in order to keep up with the demand that I believe the industry will see over the next 10 years, we have to have somebody helping produce employees.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no training. The only way to scale or grow right now is bringing someone in who knows nothing. Yep. And you're taking your own time, your own resources, you're slowing down your own production to try to train that person, and you got to do it every time. I'm curious if you found anything different.
That's it, on the job training. And yeah, there is definite challenges when it comes to that. And even locally right now, we've got the huge Micron fab being built.
Yeah, the 20 billion or something.
It's 15 billion, I believe.
That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Right now, it looks like a crane farm out there. There's, I think, 15 or 16 cranes out there. Supposedly, there's going to be like 40 here shortly.
Crazy.
But it's coming out of the ground quick. And then you've got Meta, and you've got all these other projects going on.
Yep.
And to find people to work on these projects is very challenging.
Yeah. So. And I believe we are at the point in the industry that those clients, those end owners, are starting to demand these types of services.
Oh, 100%.
It used, 10 years ago, it wasn't that way.
No.
It was somebody within started using it because it helped their job.
Yep.
But now it's been long enough and enough projects that a lot of industries and massive clients are saying, this is part of our requirement. Like, you have to scan, you have to model, you have to coordinate. It's not a benefit anymore. It's a requirement. The more that keeps spreading between different companies that's not the case yet. Mm-hmm. There's some that are still early in that. I've talked with some retail and some grocery and some people like that they're just now exploring, we want to start switching from CAD to Revit. And now that whole journey is going to start again of, okay, we got to do all the scanning, all the Revit. Now it's going to turn into, we want to scan before, we want to scan during, we want to scan after. There's not enough resources to do what the industry will demand. Unless there's a method to start scaling the resources and the people and the training. Yeah, but Micron's a very cool example of being kind of ahead of the curve. It seems they've continued to push and be forward thinking. They have that as a requirement, I believe, right? That multi-phase of doing the scans, doing the models. That I believe is still rare. Yeah. That's early, but I think it's where everybody's going to go. How have you seen, why do you think that they have that multi-phase, or how have you seen that be successful for them? Or any thoughts around that?
Well, where we found the need for it, when we got the models turned over for building 51, which was the 100,000 square foot fab that was just done since 2015 to there. I mean, they're still working in there now. On the first phase of that, when we got the models turned over, we didn't know any better. We were just starting out, project ended. They just grabbed the models, threw them over the fence to us and said, here you go. And, we were eager and we were ready to jump in and start modeling every project, everything. And we quickly learned these models don't match what's in the field. So then we had to bring in an outside firm. That's when we first started into the laser scanning. And we had them help us get our models trued up the best they could. There was so much content that was inaccurate that it really created a huge stumbling block for us to get rolling. And it put a lot of disbelief into the model from the trades guys. They're like, this isn't what it looks like out there. This is garbage, and they wouldn't even pay attention to it. So it took us to see that, to work through that, to realize, okay, when we start a project right as it's coming out of the ground, very first thing we're doing, get out there and scanning, making sure the foundation, all of the columns, all of the footing, the whole infrastructure is tight and accurate to the model as best we can. And then throughout the phases of the building, as each system's going in, each area is being completed, we're going through and scanning, and we found that to be the best method. And, it's put a lot of burden on the trades coordination side of things that they didn't, really realize until they started having to go in and as-built everything. But they're all understanding and working through the process and realizing that that's what needs to be done in order to get these projects completed and turned back over to the owner. The whole mentality there for a while was, okay, as the trades partners, we have to do these models. We don't necessarily have to follow them. We have to do the models for coordination, but then they just go out and freewheel it through construction. They're realizing that that's not the way it's going to be continuing to be done. And the benefit we're finding is, now we're getting these models back. We're instantly able to start doing our internal projects using those models with, very little need to go back and fix stuff. Which is just a huge help. Compared to what we've run into in the past. So that's why we're doing the multi-phase scanning.
And then, like you said, at the very end, you get man, is it true? We're going to have actual accurate as-builts in the future? That's great. And it's funny because that is just the common problem between every industry. It doesn't matter if it's a facility, a food processing, a warehouse, a fab plant. None of the old drawings of a design drawing that has been labeled as an as-built is accurate to what's out there, which is where I think that, again, that future demand, as just the awareness of that grows and the benefits of using this whole workflow grows, that I see as being the future, where you're not turning in CAD drawing records. You're not, same with cities and counties. And at some point, it all is going to switch to 3D deliverables because it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more accurate. It's like and you can even say cheaper because is it expensive to do? Yes. But does it save on a bunch of problems and a bunch of rework and it ultimately ends up being cheaper.
Yes.
So that it really is, or can be, faster, better, cheaper. It can be all the things. There's not a lot of negative, except for some of the current challenges we've talked about of like, is it scalable? Are there enough resources to do it constantly? And I could see organizations having some of those challenges, but I definitely think it's the direction we're headed.
And the other thing that I like to tell the owners is, before, you ended up getting the building that all of the changes and SCRs and redesign led you to at the end. That's your end product. Now you're getting more of, okay, at the beginning of the project, when you put into all this effort of the design and the coordination, that's the building you're getting at the end. Not what, ended up with after everything changed. I can think of one local project here in town, a multi-level hospital, and I got the coordination drawings on my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by noon I had the project shut down because they realized they couldn't fit the ductwork and they had to completely change the surgery suites from one floor to the other in order to accommodate.
Small change.
It shut the entire project down for weeks trying to redesign this because the ductwork wouldn't fit above the ceiling. That's a prime example of, okay, you just ended up getting this. You wanted your surgery suites on the second floor. Well, now they're on the third floor because of this.
And what happens if you don't do coordination?
Exactly. Whereas, if that building would have been done in BIM, in 3D, you would have found that out and it would have been dealt with much earlier on.
It's kind of like insurance.
Yeah.
You know, scanning early, doing 3D. It's you're paying for it, but it's to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because very often, if you don't have that information, something goes wrong. It's one of the only ways to actually proactively avoid that.
Yes.
It's going through the whole process.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of the value of scanning, the other thing where we're finding scanning useful for field walks, especially in a fab.
Yep.
You know, you do one little project, you have to take the entire team out,
Yeah.
you know, 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
Gown up,
Yeah.
go into the fab, go through the walk, and, you know, not necessarily see everything you need to see, or you've got 20 people in there talking all at the same time. You can't you know, you're missing out on conversations, you're missing out on this and that. And that's just fab level. Then you got to go down to the sub fab or up to the interstitial. So you've got all this time spent.
Very expensive job walk.
Exactly. When now the engineering coordinator running the meeting can pull up those scans in the meeting and literally do the job walk right there in the room.
And even better, you can measure things you couldn't have reached in person.
Exactly.
And,
exactly. So we're doing pre-kickoff scanning, where you'll go in, scan the area, you know, because a lot of times, since this is an R&D fab, tools are being removed, tools are being added. So we'll go in, scan the area. They'll have those scans to look at during the kickoff meeting, and then throughout the design process. You know, I mean, not saying it completely replaces field walks, because getting out there, getting your eyes on it is very valuable. But right now we have a lot of designers that are working out of state. They don't have that option of walking down to the field. They've got those scans. You can have 100 people in the meeting instead of 20. So you know, we're getting a lot more value out of the scans than just as built-in. It's, you know, it's
I think that's one of the best ways for companies to even increase, you know, those people that have the hesitation or don't completely see the value, is like, there's so many ways to use the data, from safety planning and from, you know, yes, it replaces a tape measure, but it also can be visualization. It can be marketing. It can be, you know, PR stuff. It can be, there's so much that data can do and replace, that as you get in and as you learn it and as the client uses it, and it's, the capabilities are different per industry and project type and all that as well. You know, going in and tagging things or using it for location finding, or there's so many uses. You pay for it once, and then it gives benefit in 4 different directions.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing I've been wanting to get into as well. You mentioned tagging in the scans. You know, being able to take our P&IDs and our hookup drawings and tag those to where you're going through the scan and you see a valve or a pump, you can click on it. It pulls it up in the P&ID, whether it's in AutoCAD, whether it's in the Revit model, what have you. That's another area where we really want to start looking at.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see where the future of these all continue going. I envision some of the future of, you know, the robotics on the job site helping do some autonomous capture, you know, increasing the volume of what we're able to do there. I think a big piece, working through all the data, you talked about that. That's a big struggle for everyone still. The processing power, the processing time, the hosting of data, the sharing it to clients, making it more accessible, I think, is one of the best ways for growth. As opposed to historically, it's been like you have to be a specialist to be able to use the data that's being produced. Some of those platforms where, hey, you can push it in and now it's pretty easy to use and do a walkthrough. Now the whole team can get value from it. I think continuing to see expansion in those areas, and the platforms continuing to develop tools that add benefit to individual project and industry type. And I think that's another big benefit that honestly comes from both the podcast as well as presentations at the conference, is like, if we can communicate more as a collective of all these innovative people that are doing innovative things, using these technologies, if we can continue to discuss it, continue to share it, it helps even the people manufacturing the hardware and creating the software get a faster user feedback and hearing some of the desires. And we wish there was a platform that could process all this data. Well, it could be us discussing that launches a company, you know, to go create that.
Exactly.
There are so many people that maybe are interested in developing in technology, but they don't know all of the industry problems to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed. For example, we have the Faro S70 scanners is what we're using out there. We do a lot of scanning below the raised floor in the fabs. A lot of the area, it's so congested down there, you can't physically get down there.
Yeah.
So we pop the floor tile, we invert the scanner on the tripod, lower it down below the raised floor, scan. It all works great until the guys go to try to use those 360 photos in recap and everything's upside down.
Oh yeah.
Please, Faro, make an easy button to flip those over.
We're doing an inverted scan.
Yes. So,
correct the
exactly
position for it.
Exactly. But yeah, the more we collaborate, the more everybody is talking, the faster this industry is going to grow and the better the end product's going to be. And
yeah.
That's the whole goal.
What recommendations would you give for people that are not yet using the technologies and trying to get started?
Try to figure out, and this is the hardest thing we're still trying to figure this out, what your end goal is. You know, what is it you're trying to achieve? You know, if you don't need 1/2-inch tolerances, if you can get by with 2 or 3 inch tolerances, you know, that's going to determine what scanners you purchase.
Yep.
Because, you know, terrestrial scanners are great, but they are not the fastest.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got the SLAM technology, you've got all this stuff out there where things are just, the industry is just exploding.
It is, yeah.
So really concentrate, I guess, on what it is you're trying to achieve. And then, let's see, the other thing would be, I guess you'd have to know your budget, what it is you're, you know, what you have to stay within for a budget, because as you're well aware, there's
quite a range.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And then just dive in. I mean, that's the key to it.
Yep, it is. It's always been that there has to be somebody, you know, if a company's not doing it yet, someone has to be the first person.
Yeah.
Someone has to be the one who says, you know, either goes to the leadership and convinces them to buy it or you know, and even that is a challenge, you know, if your company's not doing it yet, getting the buy-in and the awareness and the purchasing and the, but we need more people that have an interest in it to pursue it. Like
exactly.
if you see these technologies, you're not yet doing it, it does take the diving in. Someone has to be the champion for it. Someone has to be willing to do the hard work, learn the lessons,
Yes.
work through the failures.
Yeah. In my case, it took my son getting a knee surgery. He was running the scanner for several years, and this was during COVID, so wasn't a lot of options out there so I ended up going out scanning myself.
Yes.
And did that for 3 or 4 months, and yeah, it just, you know, it seems like this daunting, overwhelming thing, but you just get out there and do it, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very fun work.
Yeah, it really is. The technologies are incredible. They're so visual. It's very fun. And I not only all the benefits we've talked about and the transition from the companies that wanting to do it because they see the value, it's also what can attract next level talent, right? Next generation to want to get into the building industry. Everybody talks about a lack of resources, and it's because there's so many other things that kids are deciding to pursue, right? esports, becoming a YouTuber. Like, you know, if they can sit at home and do something fun for a career, or they can go to Facebook, or they can go, you know, why would someone consider entering construction or the built environment? Well, if we can start using these cool new technologies and bringing some of that gamification and some of that futuristic into our roles, and even as an industry, we have to start showing that and marketing even in that way if our goal is attracting more people in. And I think the technologies are a very clear way to do that.
Yeah, very good point.
I'd love some final pieces of your lessons learned or advice that you would give to those that are taking their steps forward.
You know, there's a lot to
Yep, that's a big question. I know.
Yes, it is. My mom's boss told me when I went to college was, find something you like to do it better than anybody else, and you'll be successful. And that, I really took that to heart, and, you know, that's just it. That's the key right there. Really find something that you enjoy doing. Do it better than anybody else, and you will be successful. And, you know, it's, by successful, I don't mean making $1 million. I mean being happy.
Yeah.
Wanting to get up every morning and go out.
Not dread going to work.
Exactly. And, you know, that's one of the big benefits of being your own boss is you're not always getting up dreading. A lot of times there's a lot of late nights, a lot of no sleep, a lot of
you mean you didn't just start out with like picking your hours and
not exactly. No. It was a lot of work. Just dig in, do the best you can, and obviously, especially like in my case, hope for those breaks to fall your way, because that's the key. Being in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there just busting their butts every day and not getting those breaks. So I feel very fortunate.
It's been awesome hearing some of your journey, some of the technologies. You guys are deep in it. Exciting to see that continue to grow. And I think your points I very much resonate with. You know, finding something you love that you can become passionate about, that alone can transform your career, and not even necessarily meaning you have to go start a business. I actually like that conversation too, because I don't think business ownership is for everybody.
No,
it's and it's funny because you always hear the business owners say that, right? But it's not, and there's nothing wrong with not being the owner, you know, being that number two, being someone who leads a department, if you can find something you love doing though, you can grow in your career in it, period. Because when you have something that you can get excited about, that's what happened for me. I went from being a typical CAD drafter that I wasn't super excited about the survey industry. I was just doing CAD. When I got into scanning, I was still young. It was very exciting. The transition for me was going from like just kind of barely wanting to work doing CAD to I'm really excited about this. I can get passionate about this technology. It's very visual. I want to learn. I want to research. I want to spend time in the evening like looking stuff up and connecting with people. It's not that only the technology is what built a career for me. It was being able to get excited about something because you apply yourself more. You learn faster. You want to do it. And so if you're in a role that you don't enjoy, you're typically going to just kind of stay in this unfulfilled feeling. And that thing you enjoy, it can be anything.
Yeah.
And like you also said, that is you then defining what is success. You know, it's not what role's going to make the most money, but like, can you enjoy what you do?
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing that's helped me along the way is, being the business owner of a drafting company. I mean, I've walked in these guys' shoes.
Yep.
I've taken every step along the way, drafter, engineering coordinator, designer. You know, I learned Revit when we first dove into it. You know, I obviously don't sit in the chair every day modeling, and I'm not out there scanning every day, but I know the industry. I know what it is I'm talking about, and I hire people better than me. That's the other key.
That is a big key. Yep.
So.
Yep. I think some of the best business owners are people who have lived the problem, lived through working in that role, and have a real reason or passion to start their company. But having that actual hands-on experience, same with if you're going to build a product, you're going to build you have to know the value of what you're trying to fulfill. And it helps you have perspective from everyone's roles, what they might be going through, understanding the challenges. It's like, yeah, I've been there.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, I appreciate all the advice, coming in and sharing some of your story. Excited to talk some more and watch your journey ahead with all these technologies.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.